Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again, barefaced lies. Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? 'Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Hey Sean, you got a party, got that little party going on there. Keep to the left, you can't think right, so everything you do goes wrong, yeah. Incompetence just leads to disaster. Corruption brings it on even faster. What you say?
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? 'Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? 'Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Comrades, you always told us you'd build us all a new Jerusalem, yeah. You talk the talk, but when you walk, you only leave a crooked line there. And you don't see the trouble that's brewing if all you do is just what you're doing.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? 'Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Is this where you wanna be? Debt and childhood poverty. Won't somebody set us free from this corrupt kleptocracy? Oh yeah.
Barefaced lies.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? 'Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we ever wanna defend, yeah? 'Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011, he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Very, very good evening. Wednesday, the 7th of May 2025. My name is Raj Amir. Thank you to a small and select number of you who've joined me for this evening's workshop. The email did go out to all subscribers of Redwall and Rebel, so that's free and paid. So it went out to over 3,000 people. I think I've got 36 of you, maybe 49 in total who've logged on. I think when it's in the hundreds, if not thousands, I think that just shows a reflection of that the vast majority of people who log on and take value in these broadcasts, in these transmissions, they just don't sign up or support in any way. So that's where we're up to. Right, the aim is to deliver this in about 45 minutes or so, and then I will reflect, obviously take Q&As and stuff, but reflect, go away, redraft it, and so it can become a 45-minute Zoom. Well, it won't be 45 minutes, but it can become a Zoom workshop for probably an hour and a half or so, with 60, give or take 16 people at a time who can sign up, register, and participate. My intention is just to leave it free and let people take value in it as and when they sign up. So that's the idea behind this. I've got my whiteboard in front of me, and I'll give it a few minutes for a few people to join in case there's any latecomers, and then we will get started. I think I fixed the sound and video issues. It was a rogue cable connecting one of the USB hubs to the computer, so I think that had burnt out is what was causing it. Once I changed the lead, everything seems to have been working fine, and I'm sure you can all hear me fine. So who's with us today? Jackie's with us. Aid and Steve. Which one is it? Is it Ada or Steve? Who's here? Is it both? You see Anne's here. Great. A few more people joining. This is not a new zippy top. This top has been with me for, at least a long time here. Can you see the frayed? I have bought 3 new tops. Thank you. On sale, of course, because some of you were getting in touch and you couldn't tell the difference between one transmission and another, particularly hi Steve and hi Christina, and so I couldn't work. I ended up having to buy 3 new tops, so it's the first amount of clothing apart from underwear and socks I've bought in a long time, but it's all right. I enjoyed the experience of internet shopping. Indeed, you're always here. I knew 1 or 2 of you posted and said you were struggling to get the link, but you're all here. You all got the link. I sent you the link via email, so I'm presuming you all got the link via email. Let's just check if there's any messages. There's usually a message as saying I've not got the link. No, nothing there. Billy from Page UK has sent me something, or he's done an interview with Nick Buckley about the by-election. Fraud. Okay, let's get going. I think the best way of me doing this is this. So you can see me, and why can't you see? That's why. Perfect. Alright, brilliant. Okay, the title of this, let me just set this up. 9:15. The aim is to try and finish this get through this in 45 minutes. Might even be shorter. Ready? Okay. Why were the grooming gangs protected? I mean, that's really what I am asking. We now know the grooming gangs are real. And I've been saying grooming gangs, but what we mean by that, of course, is rape clans. Protected. And I've ended up with 4 themes. And I'll tell you them. First of all, is what I make reference to as ideological cowardice and political paralysis. I'll go through these themes separately. And no, it's not, it is that, but what I think I want to show you is the layers. I want to show you the layers and the layers and the layers to what's going on. So please bear with me, and if you've got questions, by all means put the questions up and I'll try and answer the questions as we go along, but I need you to treat this as though it is a masterclass, a workshop. So the first theme is ideological cowardice and political paralysis. The second theme is class contempt and victim disregard. It didn't happen to our children, and that's why. Yeah, and again, there's a whole host of section subheadings under that. Number 3 is active corruption. So not just corruption, but active corruption and complicity. So the votes would come under that. The last one is systemic child protection failures. Now, if you look at the review after review after review, they all focus on this. Systemic child protection failures. The system failed. The system failed. They ignore the ideological cowardice and political paralysis, and if they do, it's very limited. They talk very little, if at all, about class contempt, but they do victim disregard, but they don't really go in and say why they disregarded the victims. And of course, this is a taboo. Active corruption and complicity. So these are the 4 themes in which I am going to present to you as to why the rape clans were protected. So let's look at the first one. Ideological cowardice and political paralysis. Indeed, fair question. Fair question. We will find out, won't we? I think they still are being protected. I think the way in which the grooming model takes place has evolved, but that's a conversation for another day. So the ideological cowardice and political paralysis can be split into the following. 1. This is the easy one. You see it all the time. The fear of being called racists. So what you have is many officials, police officers, social workers, they all admitted across the country, they avoided action because they feared being labelled racist, and if they highlighted the ethnic background of the offenders. So the fear of being called racist has only come from one place, and that's the training. And the Americans are picking up on it, and we are starting to, and it's called diversity, equality and inclusion training. The way in which they've been trained is that white people automatically are racist. It's a racial unconscious bias, they call it. You're unconsciously biased against ethnic minorities, and these people have been brainwashed that way. So even when they have legitimate concerns, they don't say anything because of the fear of being branded a racist. 2, the second one that goes alongside this is the fear of being associated with racists, and specifically with far right or extremist groups. Many of the early days of these protests were from the old BNP and also from the EDL, and the way in which the EDL in particular protested was an aggressive, indiscriminate racial bias into the way they went out protesting and attacking people. And therefore, in the early days, as much as they raised awareness, what happened was people shied away from it because these were far right. They were extremists. They were genuine far right. We're not all far right now because there are still genuine far right people. So that is the second reason. The authorities were deeply worried that acknowledging the problem would play into the hands of far right extremists. So they chose silence over justice. They chose rape over being branded rapists. Well, the rape of other people's children. The third reason under this is an avoidance of ethnic or religious group analysis. So you're all hearing about Baroness Casey finally doing an audit, a rapid audit. It took us 40 years, 50 years to do a rapid audit, apparently. And the avoidance of ethnic or religious group analysis has gone on for such a long time. So data was deliberately not collected or analysed in ways that could reveal group patterns out of fear that it would be seen as racist profiling, racial profiling. And we have a problem in this country with racial profiling, which is why the stop and search is so problematic or politically charged, as an example. So racial profiling, we fear racial profiling, so we avoid ethnic or religious group analysis, particularly when an ethnic or religious group might be more prevalent to committing certain types of crime. The fourth one, building on that, is about multiculturalism being discredited. And what we mean by that is admitting that multiculturalism has failed. Specifically, it's failed to protect vulnerable white children, vulnerable white girls, and in some cases, enabled the abuse. Doing something about it was seen to be too politically damaging. The retired police officer who recently gave his testimony on GB News, John, talked about how a senior police officer had phoned him and said, we've got a good thing going on here. We've spent years building relations. We don't want to ruin it. And that is really about the multiculturalism model being discredited. And it's a model that this country has invested in since the 1960s, at least. Hand in hand with that is the fear of damaging community relations. So the police and councils feared a backlash and unrest within minority communities, so they prioritised harmony over safeguarding. They feared that you white people would do a Southport, which by the way has recently been proven not to have been a far right, instigated by the far right. So, and that's the Unpolice's report. So they feared damaging community cohesion. The sixth one is the unwillingness to confront, and I use the word confront on purpose, cultural norms. And there was a conscious decision. So what happened here was there was a conscious decision to ignore harmful attitudes towards women and girls in some parts of the Pakistani, Mirpuri, Muslim community. Whatever ethnic identifier you want to use, there was a conscious decision by those in power to ignore harmful attitudes towards women and girls and the racism that also exists within these communities. Remember, for the last 50 years, the multicultural model in this country has been targeting white people, in particular white working class people, to come to terms with what the system believed has their racist attitudes. There was nothing ever done. In fact, it was never even recognised that racism might work both ways, and there was an unwillingness to confront cultural norms, in particular racist cultural norms within these communities. And the last one, that's in terms of ideological cowardice and political paralysis, is to do with diversity targets. And reputational risks. So local authorities were more concerned with meeting diversity quotas and appearing progressive than with confronting ethnic specific criminality. And you've seen that with knife crime, for instance. You've seen that with the disproportionate number of African Caribbean boys being stabbed and involved in gang violence, the prison overrepresentation of some groups. The reputational risk means we do not confront ethnic specific criminality. So this is the first of the reasons, and it essentially reflects how political correctness and fear of reputational damage paralysed institutions and prevented them from addressing obvious patterns of abuse. Okay, we'll get to that. So when she stood up and hounded out as a racist, yeah, absolutely, we will get to that. So don't worry. First of all, there was an ideological cowardice and a political paralysis. So hold your horses, Adrian. We will get... Remember, I set out 4 themes. And what I'm trying to show you is this is more complicated than just jumping on one issue and saying, it's this, or it's that. And they are interconnected, but there are 4 distinct themes. The second theme, let me just pick my pen, is class contempt and victim disregard. And there are 5 subheadings here. I understand that, but can we stick to this, please? There are 5 themes here. First of all, that's like me telling you not to chat at the back of the classroom or something. The first one is the contempt for the working class. There's no ifs or buts. The UK has a problem with its working class and holds them in contempt. Victims were mostly white, working class girls, disproportionately from care homes or broken families, and institutions often viewed them as disposable. So that's what took place. Institutions viewed them as disposable. They held them in contempt. They held prejudices towards the working class that they wouldn't hold towards any ethnic minority group. The second one is victims. It's not were, it's are, isn't it? Seen. Let me try and spell this. Promiscuous, I think that's right. Or complicit. So what you have here is the authorities, the police in particular, and social services, framed many of these children as willing participants, not victims, even when they were underage. Remember, lifestyle choices. That memo from the Home Office that no one owns up to, lifestyle choices. They were making lifestyle choices, and the early reports described these children as child prostitutes. So they were victims, were seen as promiscuous or complicit. Sorry, I'm trying to get rid of whatever I've done to my pen. The third one is, yes, lifestyle choices. Rather than seeing exploitation, professionals often concluded these girls were simply engaging in risky behaviour. They came from broken homes, this was normal for them, and this is normal for them. Thank you. That's an exactly, yeah. And then we have a desensitization to abuse. So repeated exposure to cases made professionals numb. Have a read of some of the harrowing testimony, the court transcripts. The girl was battered with a baseball bat, and then the baseball bat was inserted in her vagina. 4 men took turns at once. 4 men gang raped a child at once whilst there were other people queued up outside. They just become desensitized to it. They become professionally numb. And over time, they stopped seeing this level of abuse as unusual. And the last one is institutional fragmentation. So no one took ownership. These girls didn't matter. No one took ownership. No one stuck the neck out. Each agency passed responsibility to another, creating a vacuum where no meaningful action was taken. The children knew they were worthless. The abusers, the gang rape members, knew they could get away with whatever they wanted. And of course, in the background is the fear of being branded racist. Victims were treated with complete disdain because of their class, background, and even when they spoke out, they were viewed as unreliable, complicit, or worst, the worst one, not worth saving. I'm just finding something, yeah. The third of the themes is probably the most contentious of them, is the active corruption and complicity. So what we have here is one, involvement of public officials, police officers, and I'd say politicians, question mark. So there is credible allegations and documented cases where individuals in power were directly or indirectly involved with the perpetrators. Liz Truss made reference to the South Yorkshire police officers who've been arrested. It's all gone quiet, but they've been arrested. Yesterday, forget the grooming gangs, prior to this, the Vice Squad, Greater Manchester Police's Vice Squad, retired police officers in the 70s and 80s. Yesterday, 4 of them were arrested. And then, of course, you've got Maggie Oliver's revelation last week on Groom, the national scandal, that at least one of the members of the rape clans that Operation Augusta were investigating was identified as a serving Greater Manchester police officer. And it's been a week since the airing of that programme, and no one has picked up on it since. Surely the obvious question would be to Greater Manchester Police, Andy Burnham should be issuing a statement. This police officer has been arrested, charged and convicted. No. I'll tell you what happened. They covered it up because it probably wasn't just one police officer. It was probably several. They covered it up, and either at best a police officer quietly resigned, or at worst he's been promoted and still serving there. So, the involvement of public officials, police officers and politicians is, sadly, it's a factor that they don't want to talk about. Then there was the cover-up. So when all of this came out, in terms of active corruption and criminality, there was the cover-up to protect those in power. So institutions were more focused on protecting reputations than exposing crimes. Investigations were blocked, reports were buried, and even when reports were shared, they were done in such a way as to protect and cover up what really happened. Malcolm Ridgway and Gary Newsom, Andy Burnham's key expert investigators, have since resigned when conducting the Oldham investigation. And I'll use just one example because it's the most horrific of them, is that they made reference to Oldham Council's actions to put all the children that they had in the care homes who were at risk of being gang raped all in one care home, and then essentially turn their back, where these children were then just targeted by the rape gangs. They could just pick them up from one place instead of travel around without any safeguards. It created essentially a child brothel. Newsom and Ridgway described this as an innovative approach. We all know about the investigations being blocked. We all know about the reports being buried. Not one of these reports, maybe the J report in 2014, 2015 in Rotherham, is probably the one that got closest to the truth, because ever since then, the system has mobilized and all of this is contained as much as possible, even when we get to the place of reports. Active corruption and complicity. We have pressure from, and I use this term loosely because I don't like it, but what I mean is cartel kingpins, but you know it as this. Community leaders. Those within the community, my community, the Pakistani community, the Bangladeshi community, who benefit from the existing arrangement, who are related through marriage or immediate family members who are in the rape gangs. We know in Rochdale, for instance, the rape gang members were given references by powerful Pakistani politicians. We know in Oldham, Shabir Ahmed, the ringleader of the Grooming gang, a Labour Party member, well, he had a direct link with a number of Labour Party politicians in the town, so much so that one mayor, former mayor, a man called Abdul Jabbar, who was the mayor at the time, Shabir Ahmed was being prosecuted. He's on record saying he cannot recall whether he gave the man a reference. And again, just airbrushed out of his, out of the record books. So there is pressure from within the community, from community leaders, powerful figures, applying pressure on police and councillors not to pursue cases that might damage the community. Two-tier policing, two-tier community relations. You wouldn't do this in a working class white community. You'd be kicking the doors down. Steve, the one you mentioned, the one I now talk about a lot, votes in exchange for silence. Because that's what it was. Votes in exchange for silence. There's evidence that political parties and politicians within these political parties avoided action or in exchange for electoral support from blocs within the Pakistani Bangladeshi Muslim community. And I'm not the one who is just saying this anymore. It is a view increasingly held by people across the political spectrum and across figures, including not just campaigners like myself, but Simon Danchuk, the former Rochdale MP, has gone on record to say that Tony Lloyd, the former police and crime commissioner, who went on to become MP for Rochdale before he died, told him not to get involved, not to do this, because it would affect their block votes. So that is on record, and you'll find that. Then, of course, it gets sinister in terms of active corruption and complicity. You've got fear of blackmail or exposure. So some officials clearly feared their own wrongdoing being uncovered if they allowed deeper investigations to take place. So they buried it So the fear of blackmail or exposure is what happened. If this comes out, you'll be finished. You better go away and fix this. And I think a public inquiry will demonstrate that. And the active corruption and complicity would not have been possible without media complicity. For instance, I make reference to this, and so you know, to this day the mainstream media will not have me on. I am effectively blacklisted, I'd say, because the Labour Party lawyers, or maybe even the government, has written to all the mainstream media outlets saying you're not allowed to have this man on. What am I sharing with you? A deep dive analysis of what's really taking place. So they don't want the truth to come out. Which is why journalists are mobilized against people like me who do speak out. So not only are journalists discouraged from covering this issue and choose not to publish stories or publish them in such a way where there's community relations are managed, what is also taking place is the media has been weaponized to go after those of us who do speak out. So there's clearly active corruption and complicity going on, and these failures go beyond cowardice and incompetence and point instead to deliberate cover-ups and complicity in these crimes. And that is who Maggie Oliver is going after. Not only is what she's fundraising for, she's fundraising for private prosecutions because she believes and has evidenced active corruption and complicity in both the facilitation of the gang rape of children and the subsequent cover-up that took place. Okay, the last and probably easiest of the four themes. Maybe when I do this another time, I'll do the easiest one first. Is the systemic child protection failures. So, one, a lack of understanding of what grooming actually is. So they don't understand how this child abuse took place. Thank you. So staff often fail to recognize signs of grooming or didn't understand how networks operated. Complete ignorance. Why? I have no idea, but that's the truth. There was a focus on stranger danger. You've heard the phrase. Child abuse inside the family. And then, of course, the institutions such as the churches. You know, Church of England, the Catholic Church. And they didn't look at this. They didn't understand this. And child protection models, they're outdated. They focus on lone predators and not organized networks of abuse like this. So children who are vulnerable, at risk, aren't educated on this. And they're still not educated on this because of the racial dynamic. Then there's the lack of training. So frontline professionals often hadn't received proper training to identify or respond to group-based child sexual exploitation. That's what they call it. There's a clear failure to listen to victims. And when children did speak out, Many children did speak out. The stories were doubted or dismissed, and many had to go through unimaginable trauma without being believed. And then what happens is others see what's took place with them and they don't talk about it. They think, what's the point? They bury it. I know so many survivors who tried to put it behind them. Yes, agreed. The type of training message is given. Yeah. And there is, in terms of the systemic child protection failures, the obvious one that they've all admitted to is the poor interagency communication. The police not speaking to the council, the police not speaking to the schools or the children's home, social workers not speaking to the police. Well, each local authority has a designating, what's called a LAD, or local authority designated officer. So key information wasn't shared between police, social services, schools and care homes, leaving victims unprotected and perpetrators free. And of course, the lack of training, just so we're very clear, is not just around the demographics of the victims, the method of the child abuse, and of course the rationale, warning signs of the perpetrators. We don't do it. We don't go there. As a society, we don't go there. You as a Senko, so nobody told you. Yeah. There's no training. To this day across the country, there's no training on this properly. Not in just the way in which I've done it. So what took place? When you combine all four of those, themes, and so we bring them back up, so we've got them. One is an ideological cowardice, political paralysis, two is class contempt, and victim disregard. Active corruption and complicity. And a systemic child protection failures. When you combine all four of these, what you have is nothing but systemic betrayal. The protection of the rape gangs wasn't due to one failure, but a toxic blend of ideology, prejudice, corruption and incompetence. And until we confront every part of that system, the cycle of abuse will continue. So you understand it? It's an overlap. If you do those sort of diagrams, you have. Yeah, sorry, that's a rubbish way of doing it, but you understand. There's four overlapping areas, and they overlap, and these things overlap. Ideology, as in multiculturalism, prejudice towards the white working class, corruption, and incompetence. And that is that, a perfect storm. Thank you. 40 minutes. How's that? Questions, by all means, ask them away. I'll just have a sip of my Vimto. And no one will teach you this. No one will teach you this. And look how easy it is to understand it. Yeah, votes for silence struck you the most, yeah, and it's what I've been arguing for, Owen, arguing about the most, because I think that's where we are. We're now at the stage of the cover-up isn't that this happened, it's the cover-up is who is complicit and why they were complicit. 100%. 100%. I think both Gordon Brown and Keir Starmer as DPP have questions to answer. 100%. That wasn't the intention of this evening's transmission, I don't think. This evening's transmission was simply trying to pilot a masterclass on why the grooming gangs were protected. Because I talk about all of it and I put it all together in all the regular transmissions I do. And those of you who follow the work and invest in the time, get the way I share the information I do. Again, that's not for now. That's not for now. And that comes under the class prejudice, doesn't it? See, that comes under prejudice. Again. So every reason you're coming up with, every bit of information you've seen should fit into those four themes. Handed out by Blair because of his commitment to the multicultural model, the fear of being branded racist. Okay, it's coming up to 10 o'clock. I've been with you Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, and now Wednesday night. So I think that's it now until Sunday night is the plan, I think. I, of course, have my daughter on Thursday and Fridays. I might come back for something else. I wouldn't use the term. I think it's a racist term, mate. I wouldn't use it. So, if you found value, please tell people to sign up and subscribe. There's just 50 of you here right now, which I think shows how the vast majority who engage in my content don't want to even admit or sign up to a free newsletter. So that's where we have been for a long time. That's where we still are. If you find value and you're yet to do so, maybe some of you might be on the free subscription, please consider upgrading. It makes a massive difference to me. And if you can't, or if you can, consider buying me a coffee perhaps. It would be gratefully appreciated. A public inquiry would get to the truth of that, Trevor. in terms of the circular and who actually issued it and what it actually said. Yeah, they don't learn anything, do they, if nothing changes. Well, that was all. I think we're done. Yeah, enjoy. Where am I tomorrow? I am in Rochdale tomorrow for people who've asked me. And we can have a quick chat, actually, to do with other issues. I am in Rochdale tomorrow to meet the new Reform councillor. He's reached out and would value a conversation. So I said I'd head out to Rochdale and have a coffee with him. Christopher, I think, is called. And so there you go. And I am also, I think, in Manchester on Friday to meet with someone, hopefully at lunchtime, if I can make the timings work. So that's where I'm up to today, this week. And you'll get all the content, of course, as it has been coming, no matter what. Now, the Candid with Loveness stuff, I saw her post. I don't know what to say. It's a young woman who clearly wears her heart on her sleeve. And don't worry about being late. Wears her heart on her sleeve, and if she's been threatened from within her community, what do you want me to say? They've tried to kill me from within mine with the active protection of the police. So when people say, why don't more people speak out? Well, all you've got to do is see what happens to the people who do speak out. Indeed. Tell me, whilst you're here, if you're still here, what you'd want the next masterclass to be on, and I'll put it together. We said why they were protected. There's got to be one on how the grooming gangs operated, of course. So there's got to be a how, why, and what next. I presume would be the three. Ways in which you split this. And then some specific ones on understanding what a public inquiry is. So I'm just writing, so I've got this. In fact, you might as well see it. So the stuff about what a public inquiry is. Deep dive into the reports that have been published, like in Rotherham or even the Burnham ones. And okay, the drug trade, politics, rape gang triangle. Yeah, that's a triangle, isn't it? Yeah, I can do that. I don't think that'll happen. Sorry, you just need to know what I'm responding to. I don't think Jess Phillips is going to sit down in front of the panel. I think what she said under pressure, and I don't think that meeting will happen, or I don't think you'll get the cooperation from her. I think we'd be extremely naive to think. And I agree. But again, you know, I've been at this for 6 years. I'm getting tired, and the next steps isn't really just on me, is it? The next steps, what I'm trying to do is raise awareness of the people who have been elected into positions of power. There's now hundreds of reform councillors across the country. There's Conservative politicians at a local level and MP level who need to understand this issue better, the way I'm trying to articulate it. And my offer has been, like my offer has been I will travel the country and educate people. So in terms of next steps, you discovered me and it's fine. You've discovered me and I'm sharing content with you and your understanding. But the vast majority of people are ignorant. As in, it's not a slur, as in ignorant. They don't know. They don't know. And if there is a next steps, the next steps has got to be to get out there and for me to get out there and raise as much awareness as possible. I believe that. I genuinely believe that. I think I know. You've seen me comment on it in the past. They're the only show in town right now. Yes, the Conservatives as well, but in terms of the working class movement, and regardless of what people's politics are or are not, the popularity was reflected in the elections last week. Yeah, I can do one on the public inquiry and why it's needed and what's different. Thank you. I attended a poetry open night in a past life at the Contact Theatre. I don't think they'd have me there now. They'd probably chase me out. And it was packed. I remember it being packed full of lots of young people. I think Lib Dems are actually worse and Labour involved in a cover-up. I get the impression that some of the Lib Dems feel like there's nothing wrong gone on and this should be just legalised. I think the Open Justice Forum Foundation guy, Adam, is pulling that together. He seems, I get the impression he's also working with GB News, so you'll get more of that. You'll get more of that. It's what do you want with the testimonies? Do we want, people to feel outraged? It's fine, but it's what we do next. It's what we do next. Yeah, there are lots of court transcripts online. There was a woman who, I don't know if you follow me on X, but she was getting exasperated with me because she wanted to do this National Archive project. I was like, well, go and do it, then it's fine. I'm not a gatekeeper. But she wanted to archive all the sorts of testimonies, and I it's not something I could really help her with. If I'm honest with it, it's not my area of expertise, but it would be a value. I think it would be a value. I'm sorry, I blame. In the end, it's our responsibility. You know what my experience of this is? My experience of this is people shy away from the truth. They would rather not know. And lead a life in ignorance again. Oblivious to what's going on around them. Okay, if you find value, please do support me if you can. It makes a massive difference, and the best way you can support me is by sharing the content. Very good evening.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.